We went on a really lovely family holiday, which we were all looking forward to. We were going to have some fun. And our first stop was Las Vegas, and I'd arranged for a brilliant trip for all 5 of us to go to out into the desert and have a go on the quad bikes. This was just outside Vegas, about 60 miles from its the actual city.
Right in the desert.
So it was right in the desert. It was miles and miles from nowhere. I mean, it really was. It took us about an hour and 20 minutes to get there. Anyway, we got on these bikes, and there were, as I say, there were 5 of us and about 5 other people in the group, and we set off, and we should have just been going round on a flat part of the desert, but somehow or other the instructor at the front took us up an incline. But then we went up quite steeply, and I don't know what happened, and to this day I still don't know if it was my fault or the fact that the bike caught a stone, but I went over the edge of the incline and I somersaulted on the quad bike, and then I was flung off of the quad bike, landed face down on the desert, and the quad bike landed on my shoulder. And I blacked out for a few minutes, and then because everyone came running down, and I found I couldn't move. I could try to get up, but I couldn't move at all. My whole of my bottom area from my waist downwards was numb. There was nothing there at all. And my son came running down and lifted the bike off my shoulder to make sure that that I was alive, I assume. And then the people all came down to find out how I was. Couldn't move. Now, I don't really know what went on around me as such, but obviously they phoned ambulances and things. But bearing in mind we're in the middle of the desert and I'm down quite a steep incline, by the time the local ambulance people got there and came down to where I was, they got me on a stretcher. They couldn't get me up again. And I didn't know how they were going to carry me up this incline on the stretcher. Whilst I was lying on the floor, obviously face down in the desert, and everyone gathered round me, and because the sun was so hot, as you can imagine, it was blistering. It was about 100 and 120 degrees. So everyone gathered round me to keep the shade, keep me in the shade so that I obviously wouldn't burn. And somebody went to get bottles of water so that everyone had water to drink, and I was having, and my husband obviously was absolutely scared stiff, and so was my son, and obviously the friends that we were with, and I kept trying to reassure everyone that, you know, I will be fine, don't worry about it. But I could hear, although not see, because all I could see were ants running around on the floor, I could hear my husband refusing to take water. And I kept saying, Sean, don't be silly, you know, take some water. And the next minute I had, oh my God. And I said, what's happened? What's happened? And my husband had fainted. He'd just completely fainted.
Heat stroke or something like that. So.
Must have been heat stroke, but he wasn't drinking, so it's obviously something like that. So everyone was sort of concentrating on me, on him, didn't know what was going on. And then he finally came round and they made him drink water, which he obviously realised in hindsight was a very foolish thing not to do. And he went, oh, it's real. And I'm going, what's the matter? He said, oh, for one wonderful moment there, I thought it was all a dream. And he said, and it isn't, it's real. It's awful, it's real.
So when he came round?
So when he came round, he thought he was just waking up, and he didn't. He woke up, and unfortunately there I was still on the floor. But I felt sorry for my poor son. I said, because all of a sudden he thought that maybe he was going to be an orphan, but thankfully he isn't. But yeah, that was another really difficult part of all of it. So from afar, and this is quite amusing in hindsight, they saw that there was a farmer digging out his quarry. So someone went over to the farmer asked if he could bring his JCB over with the big cup front. He came over with the JCB, lowered it, they lifted me on the stretcher into the cup of the JCB. He raised it and drove me up the incline to the waiting ambulance. And they actually, this digger took me up the incline to the waiting ambulance, and from there took me to the hospital. But it was a trip on a quad bike that I thought would be fun, and I can tell you this, I won't go on another one. Thankfully, the hospital in Las Vegas were fantastic. I was there for nearly 2.5 months, and then they flew me home, and then I was in hospital here. But everyone was kind, everyone was very good.
So what happened in there? What did you break?
I broke my pelvis in 4 places, and I broke my shoulder, and I was very, very fortunate because my left leg had gone up into my pelvis, and so it was about 4 inches shorter than my right leg, and so the surgeon there had to pull it down. But thankfully I learnt to walk again, I can go to the gym, I can bend, I can do most things. And it seems that possibly the fact that the bike landed on me is probably what saved me from having any internal damage from shattered bones, because it kept me sort of solid and together. But they said to me, that the accident, when I was in intensive care, they said that the bone damage looked like someone that had been in a massive car accident and not out playing around on quad bikes. By the time I got to the emergency unit, all you could hear were people calling and shouting and running around and getting me ready. And then I sort of obviously went to sleep. They'd obviously given me painkillers and morphine. And then when I came to in the ICU unit, the surgeon said they would have to build what they call an external fixator, which apparently over here is what footballers have if they shatter a knee. It is a metal hoop that goes that is screwed into the knee and goes round the outside. Well, they had to make one for my pelvis, so you can imagine the sort of size of it. It had to be injected, had to be placed into the bone of the pelvis on either side of my body, and the big, huge, round metal part was there to keep the pins and the bones all knitted together.
So there was actual metal coming out.
So there was I had metal pins about 6 to 8 inches long, which are still in there, holding the pelvis together, and then these pins going in from the outside into the pelvis to keep it rigid. And that's it was called an external fixator. And I had to fly home on Virgin Airlines. I will say that with great pleasure, because they actually flew me home first class for nothing, because I had been injured. And when I came home and I was in hospital over here, the nursing staff hadn't seen one before, an external fixator. And I used to have visits in the early evening from nurses from other wards to come in. Could I just have a look at it, please? I've never seen one. We've only ever seen one for knees. Could I just have a look? And I became a bit of a, sort of a show. It was a bit of a surprise to my surgeon as well over here, because he had to remove it, and he hadn't removed one before. He had from the knees, but never from the pelvis. But he did a marvellous job, and I'm here walking and happy to say that I'm fine.